Hi everyone and welcome to another video. This time I have a Dell Optiplex 3020 SFF which we will disassemble, then reassemble and upgrade during that whole process. Once that is complete, and the machine still works of course, I will also do some benchmarks so we get an idea on how this device performs. The Dell Optiplex 3020 is part of the Series 4 Optiplex range and it was released at the end of 2013. All of these Series 4 models share a very similar design language. As you can see, it looks, at least externally, almost the same as this Optiplex 9020 on which I did a video some time back. Internally, there are some differences. The 3020 is part of the entry line and so is equipped with a Core i3, only has 2 DIMM slots and 2 SATA ports, but more about that later. During the video, I will upgrade that Core i3, which is a 4130, with a Core i5 4570 instead. The current 6GB of RAM which is installed will be upgraded to 8GB and the slow hard disk will be replaced with a much faster SSD. On the outside, the machine is pretty compact and has a nice form factor to my ID. Not too big, not too small. It has a slim DVD writer on the front, microphone and headphone connections, and 2 USB ports. On the side, you can see it has rubber feet, which also exist on the bottom, so you can choose to use the case in a laying way or standing up. On the back, we find DisplayPort, VGA, more USB 2 and USB 3 ports, Ethernet, audio, and a power supply and connector. Let's open up the case now. This can be done by unscrewing 2 thumb screws and pulling the lid backwards. No latching mechanism here on this entry series. Inside, we can see a similar layout as with the 9020. We have that slim DVD drive, underneath are the hard drive and memory, and here we have the CPU and the power supply. To start the disassembly, I'll disconnect the DVD writer and get that one out. Under that drive, we can see the hard drive, which is installed in some kind of a metal cage. That cage can simply be released by sliding this blue mechanism backwards. Then we can disconnect the drive and lift the whole cage out. The drive itself is kept in position on this blue plastic frame. As I told in the beginning, I'll replace this mechanical hard drive with an SSD instead. But before we can do that, we need to get that 2.5-inch drive out, and although this should be easy and toolless, the clips that hold the drive in place are very tight. So I had more success by pushing them away gently with a screwdriver instead. Now I'll go ahead and disconnect everything from the motherboard, starting with the SATA cables. And I think this must be the shortest ones I've ever seen. Not something you want to hear as a man, by the way. Next up is the proprietary 10-pin power connector, front audio and internal speaker, followed by front USB, front fan, and power for the SATA devices, which runs through the motherboard and not directly from the power supply. On the right we have the power switch and LED and front panel LEDs, and in the back we have the P4 power connector. After removing the plastic fan duct, which should improve the airflow in the case, we can also disconnect the intrusion detection switch. Last one to disconnect is the CPU fan, which is in a bit of a tight spot and it looks like it has a non-standard 4-pin connector at first glance. Everything is disconnected, so let me get that CPU fan out of the way now as well. The fan is fixed to the bottom of the case through the motherboard, so we need to get that one out first before we can get the main board out. There we go. The thermal paste, as is usually the case, doesn't look very good. After cleaning this up, I will also get the CPU out of the socket. As mentioned in the beginning, we have a Core i3 4130 here. Not really the fastest option, but we'll take care of that with an upgrade. As you can see here, I have an i5 4570 ready. This one will replace the i3 4130. This should give us a nice performance improvement. Both of these are 4th generation Intel Core CPUs known as Haswell. The i3 has only 2 cores, where the i5 has 4 available and double the amount of cache for 6 MB in total. As the i3 has a slightly higher base frequency, I think that single core performance won't be that much better, or maybe even slightly worse for the i5, but multi-core performance will definitely compensate for that. I guess we'll see that in the benchmarks. Back to the disassembly, and the last components we can remove from the mainboard are the memory DIMMs. We have a 2 GB Kingston module, which most likely got installed afterwards, and a 4 GB module, which probably came with the machine. Everything is out and disconnected, so we can remove the screws and get the motherboard out now. Don't forget about that last screw, the large one that holds the drive cage in place, as that's what I did first. Once that one is out as well, we can finally get the mainboard out of the case. Before we will take a better look at that mainboard, let's check out which power supply we have here. Looks like this one can deliver up to 255 watt, which is not that bad for such a small form factor machine. Upgrading the CPU and even a low profile GPU shouldn't be a problem. Back to the motherboard now, where we have the CPU socket, 2 memory DIMM slots for 2 channels, 10-pin power input, P4 power input, power output for SATA, and the 2 SATA ports. CMOS battery and password reset jumper, power switch, front panel LEDs, CPU fan, optional serial port and PS2, intrusion detection switch, front audio, internal speaker, front USB, and a PCI X16 and X1 slot. Here we have everything laid out nicely on the table. We can see the motherboard, DVD drive, CPU fan, drive cage, CPU fan duct, old hard drive, and SSD replacement, old CPU and the upgrade, original 2 GB and 4 GB, and the 4 GB module that will replace that one of 2. A bit of thermal paste and the shortest SATA cables ever. Time to put things back in place, starting with that upgraded CPU, a Core i5-4570 as I mentioned. We just need to be careful with the orientation, and then can drop in the CPU in the socket and close it properly. Before putting the board back in the case, I will also install the memory, 2 x 4 GB now. Then we're good to put the board back where it belongs and get it fixed again. First that standoff screw, followed by the rest of the regular screws. Next that goes in is the CPU fan. Before we do that, a bit of fresh thermal paste, and then we can put it back in and fix it. Do pay attention here for the orientation and position of the connector, as in my case, it just didn't reach long enough in the way I did this. So I had to remove the CPU fan again, turn it 90 degrees, and then I could get it connected and fixed again. There we go. Now time for my least favorite part, and that is to reconnect everything to the motherboard. I'm glad that is out of the way, and now I can put back the plastic fan duct and move on to the drives. First, I'll put the SSD into the blue bracket. And again here, it feels like I need to put way too much power for this to be healthy, but it works. That blue bracket slides into the metal cage once the drive is installed. And before we can put it back, we first need to connect the SATA cables, which I almost forgot about. Then we can put the drive cage back where it belongs. There isn't a lot of space here, and a lot of the cables that are running to the motherboard are near, so better do this carefully. While the drive is not fully in place yet, it's easier to connect the cables. There we go. Everything is back in place and we can lock it with the blue slider on the side. The last component that goes back in is the DVD drive. We just need to slide it back to where it belongs. And here as well, connect power and SATA. All done, and we can close up the case. And of course, see if everything works as expected. I've connected the machine to a monitor and keyboard, and let's try to power it on. We have a message that no bootable devices are found, but that is totally expected as the new SSD is still empty. Let's take a quick look in the BIOS setup first. Here we can see the upgraded memory for a total of 8 GB now. We can see the new i5-4570 CPU, and also both the SSD and DVD writer. Let's quickly get Windows 11 on here by booting from a USB drive. I'll just run through this very quickly as there isn't too much special to see about this. In case you're interested in installing Windows 11 on unsupported hardware, like this Dell Optiplex 3020, I'll put a card here to a video with some more details. Now that Windows is installed, I'll also install all updates that are available, including missing drivers. And here we are, a few reboots later, our upgraded system is fully ready. Let's start by having a look at About Your PC to see if that matches with what we saw in the BIOS setup earlier. As expected, we can see the new CPU and upgraded memory in this place as well. Time for some benchmarks, and I will start with Geekbench 5, which also sees the same hardware obviously. There we have it, 813 single core and 2774 multi-core. I did run the test as well with the original CPU, that i3-4130, and these were the results. So indeed, due to the higher clock speed of that old CPU, single core performance is slightly better, but multi-core is definitely a big improvement. What I'm a bit surprised about is the difference in performance with an earlier tested HP ProDesk 400G1. As it has the same CPU and dual channel memory configuration, I would have expected this to perform similarly. Up to Geekbench 6 now, where I will also run the CPU benchmark. Here we get similar results if we compare this machine before and after upgrading, but strangely enough, the difference with that HP PC is the other way around now, and this time the Dell is performing better. I'm not sure why we get these numbers, but it's pretty clear that our upgrade is a success and performance definitely got a proper boost. Last test that I will run is for disk performance. I will do this with AGA system tests. 420 MB per second write and about 506 MB per second read, that's just pretty fine. So even though the hard disk got replaced with a pretty cheap SSD, one of the cheapest actually, performance wise there is nothing wrong. That's all I had for this video. Upgrading this machine definitely improved its performance by a lot and made it usable again for 2023. Obviously, this won't be a high performance machine, it never was, but still pretty useful for a lot of tasks. The nice and compact form factor and near silent operation makes this machine a pleasure to use. Thank you for watching. If you have liked this video, I'd appreciate a thumbs up, and if you're interested into more of the same, don't hesitate to subscribe to my channel. Thanks again, and hope to see you back here soon.